For more on this, we are now being joined by Dov Zakheim, former Undersecretary of Defense in the George W. Bush administration and currently senior advisor at Center for Strategic and International Studies. He's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for coming back on WION. Is there some kind of power struggle right now between the United States and Turkey and their proxies in Syria? And what is next for Syria?
Well, I wouldn't call it a struggle, but there's clearly a competition. As you just heard,
Mhm.
you've got three sets of bombings going on. The Israelis are taking out chemical weapons facilities, which frankly everybody will agree is a good idea. The real issue, of course, is how far in are the Israelis moving, and they're probably not going to go to Damascus for the very simple reason, what are they going to do with it when they get there? Now, this is a huge city in a huge country. Syria is seven
Mm.
times the size of Israel. They've got enough on their plate. So they're not going to do that, but they do want to take out not only the chemical facilities, but also anything that allows Iran to continue to supply Hezbollah in Lebanon. So that's the Israelis. We, the United States and the Turks, are clearly on opposite sides because we are supporting what is called the Syrian Democratic Forces, led by the Kurds. The Kurds have referred to the area
Mm.
they control as Rojava, which sounds an awful lot like a state, which is the nightmare for Turkey because of so many Kurds living, especially in southeastern Turkey. And the Turks are inside Syria, not only bombing, but with troops on the ground, and they've been there for some time. So you have the United States supporting a group that the Turks consider to be terrorists. Meanwhile, we on our part are bombing ISIS because we don't want ISIS to spread. This is very much like the chaos that happened in 1917 with the Russian Revolution, where you had so many parties uh,
Mm.
essentially fighting it out until the Bolsheviks came on top. And then you had foreign interventions as well, well into what was called the Russian Civil War. We don't really know what's going to happen in Syria. We know that HTS and especially Al Jalani, the leader, is saying all kinds of nice things. They are still, by the way, on the American terrorist list. And we don't know whether what's being said now will apply later on. Look at Afghanistan, where the Taliban initially said all kinds of things that made people think they were more moderate, and that, of course, has not been the case.
What about the challenges that the current administration, the Biden administration, faces on the one hand, and of course the incoming Trump team will face regarding Syria, and if it does slip into deeper chaos?
Well, the Biden administration has a lot on its plate right now. They're trying very hard to bring an end to the war in Gaza. You just had reporting about what the Chinese are trying to do to Taiwan, and not to mention what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And the Biden administration is desperately trying to provide as much aid as it can to Kiev, simply because they don't know what the Trump administration is going to do. So when Mr. Trump comes in, he not only has a war in Gaza that he wants to end before he comes in, but we'll see if that happens. He's got a war in Ukraine that he says he's going to bring to an end. He's got a challenge from China that doesn't go away. And now he's got chaos in Syria. So he has a lot on his plate, in addition to, of course, the Iranians who are smarting from their suffering attacks from Israel and maybe moving ahead with their nuclear program. And then in our own backyard in the Western Hemisphere, we still have problems with Venezuela. And it's just a massive, massive menu of trouble around the world that Mr. Biden is essentially going to leave to Mr. Trump.
And we talked about Israel a bit, but Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq are now condemning Israel, what they call, quote unquote, Israel's dangerous land grab in Syria. But as you mentioned, everyone should be happy that Syria is targeting these chemical weapons facilities. So why are they saying this? And is their concern legitimate?
Look, I think it's a message, and frankly, it's a sensible message because what they're telling the Israelis is don't move toward Damascus. As I said, the Israelis cannot cope with taking over Damascus, and frankly, they cannot cope with taking over Syrian territory. The Arab
Mm.
states, several of whom are actually reasonably friendly with Israel, are saying, look, don't lose your heads here. You've got enough that you're doing. You're still in Gaza. You have a very, very fragile ceasefire with Hezbollah. Don't violate Syria's borders. You're already on the Golan Heights. And as you know, only the United States recognizes Israeli control of the Golan Heights. So it's a message more than a real attack or anything like that by these Arab countries. They're simply saying, don't overdo it.
Mm. Dov Zakheim, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.